Life's only constant is change. We hear that all the time. But here's the real question, isn't it? How do we not just, survive it? How do we actually thrive within it? Maybe even transform ourselves? Today, we're diving deep into the art of adaptation. It's a skill set that feels, well, more crucial than ever. Whether we're talking about navigating huge global challenges, fostering our own personal growth, or, leading teams through uncertain times. To really unpack this, we've pulled insights from a whole stack of fascinating sources. We've got reports on really ambitious climate adaptation strategies, psychological studies digging into resilience, and some sharp business analyses on leadership, too. Our mission with this deep dive is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge to help you understand just how multifaceted adaptation really is, and, more importantly, how you can apply these powerful insights to your own life, whether you're facing personal shifts or maybe some big professional transformations.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about adaptation, it can sometimes feel like just another buzzword, right?
It definitely can. But beyond that surface level, what does it truly mean to adapt? Especially in a way that lets us, well, flourish.
Yeah, adaptation, really at its heart, it's about the capacity to adjust. Not just quickly, but effectively, easily even, to changes happening in your environment. And what's truly fascinating here is how universal this idea is.
Universal how?
Well, it applies whether you're talking about huge external forces like climate shifts impacting whole nations or, those internal shifts, like how we approach our work, our personal lives. It's not just reacting, it's really about evolving.
That distinction, reacting versus evolving, that feels key.
Yeah.
Our source from Training Magazine, the one on cultivating a growth mindset, it introduces a really powerful concept that seems to underpin that evolution.
Precisely. Margaret Graciano, she explains that a growth mindset, it isn't just being optimistic, it's more fundamental. It's the belief that your talents, your abilities, they aren't fixed things.
Right, not set in stone.
Exactly. They can be developed through dedication, effort, and crucially, being open to, well, always learning, continuous learning. And that's such a sharp contrast to a fixed mindset where people believe their intelligence, their traits, they're just static, which often leads to resisting change.
So, okay, instead of feeling threatened by a challenge or, shying away from failure, you actually see them as essential opportunities, chances to grow, to expand. That sounds pretty fundamental for adaptation, whether you're talking about yourself or a whole company.
It absolutely is. Graziano highlights how that fixed mindset can really lead to stagnation, where people might just defend old ideas instead of exploring new possibilities. And that just hinders all innovation.
Yeah, kills it.
Think about Microsoft's transformation under Satya Nadella. He actively worked to foster a culture that shifted, moved away from that kind of rigid internal competition towards one that really embraced continuous learning and collaboration.
That wasn't just a business strategy then.
No, it was like an organizational growth mindset in action. And it raises a really important question for us, I think. If a huge organization like that can achieve such a profound mindset shift, how can we apply that same powerful idea to our own personal lives?
Our Reach education source, the one titled How to Embrace Change and Personal Growth, a river runs through it. It gives us a really vivid analogy here. It pulls from Khalil Gibran's poem, The River Cannot Go Back.
Yes, that's a beautiful one. The poem describes a river's, it's fear before it enters the vast ocean, feeling like it's going to disappear, right? That its identity will just be lost. But ultimately, it has to take that risk. It has to enter the ocean to actually become the ocean. It's such a profound metaphor for how inevitable change is, and the courage needed to face it head on because, like the poem says, nobody can go back. It's an act of surrender, yes, but also profound growth.
And Heraclitus, centuries earlier, he echoed this, didn't he? Saying, change is the only constant. And famously, no man ever steps in the same river twice because it is not the same river and he's not the same man. Okay. So what does all this mean for you, our listener, maybe grappling with the changes in your own life right now?
Well, it means that perhaps the wisest, the most empowering response to change isn't trying to fight it, but to adapt, to flow with it, just like that river, the serenity prayer. It distills this core idea so beautifully. Serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Courage to change the things I can.
And wisdom to know the difference.
Right. It frames change not as some threat to be feared, but as a positive, aspirational, even a desirable pathway to growth.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Adaptation isn't just, a philosophical concept or a personal journey. It's being implemented on a massive global scale, particularly in response to the, unavoidable effects of climate change. Our GCA.org source, the one listing 12 great examples of how countries are adapting, it really lays this out with some powerful examples. Yeah, this 2019 report, it really underscores the urgency. It states flat out that the world's readiness for climate change is, and I quote, gravely insufficient, and that trillions of dollars are needed. But it also presents a really compelling economic case.
That's so.
Investing $1.8 trillion globally just in 5 key areas between 2020 and 2030, that could generate an astonishing $7.1 trillion in total net benefits.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. And often the biggest obstacle isn't the lack of funds, surprisingly. It's a lack of political leadership to, as they put it, shake people out of their collective slumber. But importantly, there are many bright spots, lots of innovative solutions popping up.
Okay, let's dive into some of those. When we think about building like physical infrastructure to adapt, what's a classic example of that kind of forethought and robustness?
The UK's Thames Barrier has to be the iconic one, right? Opened way back in 1982. Its projected design life was until 2030, but studies now show it can actually protect London until 2070.
70.
Yeah, thanks to its adaptable design and the ability they built in to raise the embankments later. Right now, it protects about 1.3 million people and something like $275 billion in property. That's an amazing testament to long-term adaptive engineering.
That really is impressive long-term planning, anticipating future needs like that. What about adapting through, say, financial mechanisms to manage and mitigate risks, especially in really vulnerable regions?
Well, in Africa, there's the Africa Disaster Risks Financing Program, ADRI-5 for short. It basically provides countries with access to market-based solutions for transferring climate risks.
So like insurance?
Sort of, but more proactive. It means they can get payouts before or during a disaster, not just cleaning up afterwards. It encourages countries to finance insurance premiums from their own budgets too, and offers really crucial capacity building support. It's all about building proactive financial resilience.
And this idea of adapting with nature, not just building against it, that sounds like a really powerful strategy, maybe overlooked sometimes.
It truly is, and often more sustainable. China, for example, is using this really rigorous science-based process to designate about a quarter of its entire country as high protection areas for biodiversity, ecosystem services, and disaster risk reduction.
A quarter? That's massive.
It is. And Mexico has designated water reserves in over a third of its river basins. That protects the water supply for something like 45 million people. Then there's the ambitious Great Green Wall Initiative across 21 African countries, focused on restoring land, planting trees. We're talking millions of hectares restored in Ethiopia, millions of trees planted in Senegal. These are all examples of leveraging natural systems as a form of adaptive infrastructure.
So it's not always about these massive top-down, concrete-heavy projects then. Community involvement seems vital too, doesn't it? Especially with these nature-based solutions.
Absolutely. On the coast of northern Java in Indonesia, local communities were actively involved in planning the restoration of a huge 20-kilometer belt of coastal mangroves.
They planned it themselves.
Participatory planning, yeah. And this, combined with introducing sustainable aquaculture and reducing groundwater extraction. It increased resilience for 70,000 people. Plus, you get all those extra benefits like carbon storage, biodiversity, better fisheries. It's adaptation really bubbling up from the ground.
And we see Canada investing significantly in this kind of blend too, right?
Yeah.
Natural and constructed solutions together.
Yes, exactly. Canada's $1.6 billion Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, DMAF, it specifically helps communities manage risks from natural hazards, and it encourages investment in both green, natural infrastructure and traditional constructed or gray infrastructure.
Any specific examples?
Yeah, there's a notable $20 million investment going into restoring salt marshes and improving dikes along the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia. That directly reduces coastal flooding risks for tens of thousands of residents, businesses, even World Heritage sites, indigenous communities, and huge areas of farmland.
What about a country that made like a fundamental philosophical shift in how it lives with water rather than just constantly fighting it?
The Netherlands. They provide a really remarkable example with their room for the river strategy.
Room for the river. I like that.
Yeah. Instead of just building higher and higher levees, which is the traditional approach, they literally made space for the water. They moved dikes inland, widened rivers, raised bridges, dug new flood channels. This allowed the Rhine River to safely carry, I think it was an additional 1,000 cubic meters of water per second during peak flows.
Wow.
And it wasn't just about safety. This approach also created new parks, new recreational spaces. It turned a challenge into an actual amenity for the community.
That's clever. And beyond these huge landscape-scale projects, how do communities and countries adapt, say, individual homes and local infrastructure to be more resilient?
Well, in the Philippines, after that devastating Typhoon Ondoy back in 2009, communities worked directly with the decision makers. They designed climate-resilient homes together using disaster-resistant materials, things like elevated water tanks. Already, about 480 families have moved into these adapted homes, and they expect around 900 units total.
So people are safer, living better.
Exactly. And similarly, the Republic of the Marshall Islands is working with the World Bank to improve the resilience of their vital maritime infrastructure, which is just crucial for community transport and supply lines in an island nation.
This brings up an important point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how we use data, how we use foresight to adapt more proactively, to get ahead of things, rather than just reacting to crises.
Indeed. Being proactive is key. Australia's Endeavour Energy, for instance, uses a geographic information system, a GIS, to identify exactly which assets are in bushfire-prone areas. This allows for much more efficient vegetation management near power lines.
So fewer outages during fire season.
Precisely. It directly minimizes outages during those high-risk periods. And then on a global scale, you have partnerships like cruise climate risk and early warning systems. Their aim is to increase the capacity, especially in vulnerable countries, for effective impact-based multi-hazard early warnings.
Getting the word out effectively.
Yes. And then there's something called forecast-based financing, or FBF. This is really transformative, I think. It basically turns standard disaster response completely on its head.
How does it do that?
By funneling resources to communities before extreme events even hit, based on forecasts, rather than just reacting afterwards. We've seen this used in Uganda, for example, to protect against flooding-induced waterborne diseases by acting before the flood arrives. It's truly about proactive prevention.
Okay, so shifting from these, grand global strategies and national plans, let's bring it back down to the individual experience. What stands out to you about how we humans adapt psychologically? We have that study on Malaysian university undergraduates that really delves into this, right?
Yes, the ERIC source, the influence of resilience on psychological well-being. It highlights something many students experience. University life just constantly presents challenges, academic ones, personal, social, even logistical things like, bad internet connections.
Yeah. Barely felt that one.
Right. And their research found that resilience isn't just like a nice-to-have trait. It's a significant factor that differentiates between students who succeed and those who struggle when facing these constant challenges.
Okay, so most of us probably have a general idea of resilience, like bouncing back. How does this study maybe refine or deepen that understanding? What's the key insight here?
Well, while bouncing back from adversities is definitely the common understanding, this study suggests something interesting. It suggests that actively cultivating positive emotions is actually a crucial way to nurture resilience, and that resilience, in turn, significantly enhances psychological well-being. So it's not just about grit or toughness. It's also about proactively building an emotional buffer, you could say.
And psychological well-being, or PWB, they define that as.
It's not just about feeling good. It's more about the extent to which people are living themselves to the fullest of their potentials. It's really about optimal functioning.
That's fascinating. So the study found this significant positive link between resilience and PWB among these students. How can we maybe apply these findings beyond just university students to our own daily lives?
Well, the study really suggests that fostering resilience is highly impactful. For us as individuals, the practical advice includes things like maintaining perspective, consciously stepping back to see challenges from a bigger or maybe just a different viewpoint.
Getting out of the weeds.
Exactly. Another key is reflecting on everything you've already accomplished. That helps build belief in your ability to bounce back from whatever you're facing now. And for institutions or even workplaces, the implication is clear. Actively develop programs that cultivate resilience, provide social support, maybe encourage group activities where people can actually share adversities and, release some of that psychological burden together.
This idea of resilience and adaptability, it carries over directly into the business world too, doesn't it? The Magna Scientia source, the one on the power of resilience and flexibility in business leadership, makes a really strong case for it.
It absolutely does. This source positions resilience and flexibility not just as helpful, but as non-negotiable attributes for leaders, especially in today's constantly shifting corporate landscape. Resilient leaders, they don't just recover from setbacks, they actually leverage them. They use them as opportunities for growth. They demonstrate that mental fortitude needed to deal with stress and, crucially, to learn from mistakes. It's about using adversity as a kind of springboard.
Okay, so that's resilience. What about flexibility in leadership? How does that complement resilience?
Flexibility in leadership, that's more about the ability to adapt and respond successfully when things change operationally, or even when whole industries get overhauled. A flexible leader is open-minded, adaptable, and critically willing to change strategies, plans, even their own mindsets to achieve objectives.
So they're not rigid.
Not at all. They thrive in unpredictable situations, they can make quick decisions when needed, and they're willing to take calculated risks. It's really about agility, both in thought and in action.
It sounds like these two qualities, resilience and flexibility, they must have a really powerful meeting point then.
Yeah.
Creating a leader who can not only, weather the storm, but also steer the ship in totally new directions if needed.
Exactly. Their intersection results in what the source calls dynamic leadership. Leaders who embody both qualities, they don't just help their firms survive turbulence successfully, they actually foster an organizational culture of agility and, importantly, shared resilience. They're the ones who genuinely see setbacks as chances for growth, they recover swiftly, and they stay open to new ideas. They're willing to shift direction when necessary, and they lead by example in doing so.
This brings up a really important question, though. How do these dynamic leaders actually communicate and behave to make this happen? What specific actions really foster this culture of adaptability? It can't just be about them, right?
No, definitely not. They tend to have excellent communication abilities. They effectively convey the vision and goals, sure. But they also actively solicit, and this is key, value feedback from their employees. That promotes a culture of collaboration, of inclusivity.
So everyone feels heard.
Right. And they're also skilled at resolving conflicts fairly and calmly, preventing issues from just festering and becoming toxic. Furthermore, these leaders often prioritize work-life balance and well-being for their teams. They understand that a healthy, happy workforce is inherently more productive and motivated.
That makes sense.
And maybe most importantly, they model their own perseverance and flexibility when they face adversity. That helps team members see how it's done and emulate those traits themselves. It fosters a positive environment where mistakes aren't failures to be punished,
Right.
but invaluable opportunities for learning and growth for everyone.
Okay, so we've explored what adaptation is. We've looked at how entire countries are grappling with it on a huge scale and how effective leaders are cultivating it within their organizations. Now, for maybe the most practical part, what does all of this mean for you? How can we actively cultivate these characteristics in our own lives, starting, right now?
The Osiko London source, The Art of Embracing Change, A Guide to Living Your Best Life, it provides some incredibly practical strategies here. First, it says it's crucial to genuinely recognize that change isn't just inevitable, it's often beneficial.
Beneficial how?
Well, it's the engine of growth, of innovation, of uncovering new opportunities. Conversely, resisting change, which can feel so tempting sometimes, it almost invariably leads to stagnation, missed opportunities, and, frankly, increased stress.
But let's be honest, change can feel incredibly scary. That fear of the unknown, or maybe the fear of losing what we already have, that can be paralyzing sometimes. How do we overcome that really deeply human fear?
Yeah, it's real. The source identifies some root causes of that fear. Maybe uncertainty, a feeling of losing control, fear of failure, or even just negative experiences with change in the past. To overcome this, it suggests actively challenging those negative beliefs that pop up, consciously building resilience and coping skills, and crucially, seeking support from loved ones, friends, or even professionals like well-being coaches.
So not going it alone.
Definitely not. And our Center for Clinical Intervention source, the one on accepting uncertainty, it gives some really concrete steps, too, for managing what they call intolerance of uncertainty, which often fuels worry.
The kind of steps.
Simple things, but powerful, like just being aware of your need for certainty in a situation. Then consciously choosing not to respond with worry, actively trying to let go of that intense need for control, and intentionally trying to be present-focused right here, right now. It's like building a mental muscle.
A mental muscle. I like that. Okay, so once we're working on that mindset, managing the fear a bit better, what are some tangible steps we can take to embrace change more effectively, to make that river metaphor feel a little smoother in practice?
Well, setting clear, but adaptive goals. And creating a flexible plan. Maybe breaking the whole process down into smaller, more manageable steps. Tools like a weekly planner pad or a priority pad can actually be surprisingly effective, just for organizing tasks and keeping that momentum going.
On track.
Yeah. And it's also vital, the source says, to celebrate progress, even small victories along the way. This isn't just, feel good fluff. It actively maintains motivation and builds confidence as you move forward.
Right, reinforces the positive.
Exactly. Find inspiration from others too, people who've successfully navigated similar changes, whether that's through books, podcasts like this one, or maybe mentorship programs. And crucially, stay flexible, stay adaptable when you face uncertainty. Be willing to pivot, to change course when needed. The source really emphasizes applying these strategies to all areas of your life, your career, your relationships, personal growth, health, even your finances.
It really sounds like adaptation isn't a one-time event then,
Good.
or like a hurdle you jump over and then you're done. It's much more like a continuous process throughout our lives, like that river, always moving, always changing.
That's exactly right. The idea of embracing change is a lifelong journey. It means recognizing that change is a constant, continuous process. It's not an interruption to your normal life. It is normal life. It involves this steadfast commitment to personal growth and development, actively seeking opportunities for learning, for self-improvement, for self-reflection. Ultimately, it's about cultivating that growth mindset we talked about right at the beginning, where challenges are embraced, setbacks are persisted through, and even failures. They're seen not as endpoints, but as invaluable opportunities for learning and really profound growth.
So today, we took a real deep dive into the art of adaptation. We explored everything from these ambitious global climate strategies and organizational resilience, right down to the individual psychology of bouncing back and growing through all those inevitable shifts life throws at us.
Yeah, and we've seen how embracing change, actually leaning into it rather than resisting it, it really unlocks opportunities for innovation, for enhanced well-being, for greater success, whether you're a whole nation, a business, or just, an individual trying to navigate your path.
So what does all this mean for you as you navigate your own journey? Maybe consider this provocative thought. In a world where change truly is the only constant, are you building a river or a dam? That choice, the choice to flow, to adapt, and to transform, it can be the most powerful decision you make on your lifelong journey.